Our guest this episode is Evan Babins, an award-winning event producer and keynote speaker who spent more than a decade creating virtual, hybrid, and in-person experiences for corporate audiences. Evan has worked across agency and client-side roles, producing immersive branded activations in industries like pharma, automotive, and finance. He's also been recognized by Eventex, Meetings Today, Bizzabo, BizBash, and Special Events Magazine as one of the leading voices in the event industry. With deep experience in stakeholder management, event technology, sponsorship, and vendor strategy, Evan brings a practical view of what it takes to create events that actually work. Here to discuss the strategy behind better event experiences, please welcome to the podcast, Evan Babins. Evan, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the Engaging Personalities Podcast. I'm Anders Belanger, founder and CEO of Engagify, where we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. We believe that we can all be more successful if we can command attention and deepen connection. So stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest on a future episode. So let's get ready to engage.
Thanks so much for having me. And that was like an unbelievable intro. Can you come do that everywhere I go? Can you come and introduce me like that? Like that was, you hit all the marks.
Well, for sure. And I've touched on this in the past too about, setting up someone, and we do a lot of emceeing at trade shows and different events and things. That authority, that kind of passing of, passing of the torch in a sense, but you want to set someone up, right? And it's like it. So people know why they should listen, right? Like it's increased that authority. And for us, that's a real engagement driver, right? Is making sure that people know what they're going to hear is going to be good stuff. So appreciate you being here.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. So Evan, you heard in the intro, you lived it. The audience heard in the intro that you've been on both sides of the coin. You've done it all. Like, what got you started in events? Because it seems like you love events. I would think like a lot of people fall into events. Maybe that's the case too. How did you get started?
Yeah, so I definitely didn't fall into events. It was definitely a series of decisions, conscious decisions that I made over my career that I like to call the 360-degree view of the industry. And so we're going to go back. I'll give you the 50,000 square foot view of things. We're going back to 2004, 2005. I'm in grade 11 in high school. And not to age myself, a friend of mine in high school is like, I'm thinking of starting an AV production company. Do you want to come and work there with me? I've got nothing else to do at the time. I had just started DJing, which we'll get to in a second. So when I wasn't doing gigs, I had weekends open and I was available. So I was like, sure, let's do it. So I started off with pulling cables. I was like the first truck driver. I was the first warehouse manager. I was the first tech, like all of that for the company, which is still owned and operated by the same two people. They're like the number 3 or number 4 AV company in Canada now, which is amazing. It's great to see their growth. From there, I was like, okay, where do we go from here? From like a schooling perspective. And so I decided that radio broadcasting made a lot of sense. It was like the music, it was marketing, it was like DJing was very popular then. I was DJing full time at the time at that point. So I did that program, realized that I wasn't going to go into radio because it just wasn't going to happen from a life, personal career standpoint. And so then the decision became, okay, let's turn this into a career. And it was a very strategic kind of move. So my first step on the 360-degree view of the industry, we're sort of actually now on step 2, is hospitality. So I worked at a couple of large event venues in Toronto. I started off on the AV side, moved to operations and event management. From there, I went agency side. So I worked at an agency based just out of Toronto, where we did international events, multi-day conferences, trade shows, sales kickoffs, marketing meetings for pharma, automotive, and financial services. Those are my 3 big clients there. If you're following along the journey, we've hit 3 out of the 4 pillars so far. We've hit vendor, we've hit venue, and we've hit agency. And so what's left? In-house is left. And so then I went to work at a bank in Toronto, where I managed the event team pre and post-COVID, which was really interesting. And we can get to that in a minute as well, too. And then from there, since COVID, I've been in and out of different agencies and in-house client side positions. And currently, I'm the senior event manager at Point Click Care, where we're an electronic health records company. We're like really into AI and all that other kind of stuff. But really, back to what I love doing, back to the end-to-end event production, back to the entire cycle of pre-event, coming up with the concept, strategy, execution, vendor relations, on-site management, and then closing up the event at the end of the day. So really excited. The journey has been crazy, but I feel like every step along the journey has sort of, like you said in the beginning, that sort of setting yourself up for success and that like sort of passing the baton, so to speak. Every point along the journey, I feel, is a bit of luck, a bit of good decisions, a bit of right time, right place. But I truly believe that everything led to this point in time, in this moment, in the role and the company that I'm in today.
Yeah, I really love the 360 view and the way you refer to it as that. And I think that does give you like a very unique perspective and when I said both sides of the coin, it's actually you're almost on three or four
sides of the cube.
Yeah,
four sides of the cube.
Yeah, which would actually be 6 on a cube. But anyways, we won't get into that. Maybe there's 2 other dimensions we're not actually considering right now. But if you were to kind of look at your journey and what you've learned over time, and I would say that, most listeners of this podcast probably are more on that corporate side of things, right? On the if it's event manager or corporate meeting planner or that kind of thing. What do you think you've learned that maybe if they haven't had your journey, that they need to kind of dig into a little bit more or maybe expose themselves to?
It's always about the people. It's about the people everywhere you go. And what I mean by that is the people internally in your company. So you as an employee of another company, if you don't work for yourself or you're not, an entrepreneur, you're simultaneously managing 2 brands, so to say, right? You're managing your personal brand and you're managing your company's brand as that position that you are in that company. And so it's really important that you always think about how you manage and how you differentiate both of those 2 personas and those 2 brands simultaneously. And a big piece of that is getting into and learning the people in your company, the people you work with, the people who you report to, executive team, to know where the pain points are, where you can help, where you can support. And at the end of the day, where you're there to make things better and easier from that journey of the events perspective. But then also from like your personal brand, it's about meeting people in the industry, finding people. I always say, like, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room, right? Like I want to be the dumbest person in the room. So I'm learning from everybody. And so I'm part of like, different event industry Slack communities. I'm part of, there used to be like back in COVID times, it was like, the big thing was like Clubhouse groups, if you remember those. I like ran 2 like Event Pro like calls on Clubhouse, and it was always about meeting new people in the industry, expanding sort of your network outside of like your home market. So I'm based in Toronto. So I'm always looking to meet new people and to grow my network, not only across Canada, but in the US as well, especially these days, because the events I'm working on are all in the US, but also into Europe and other markets, so that if you need something or if you need someone in any of these other places, like you've got that roster database, you've got those connections, so that when even someone comes to you and they're like, hey, I need a private dining room in Boston. Do you know anybody who can help me? If you have that roster, if you've built those connections by meeting new people and expanding your own sort of, connection, like database, you can support, you can be there, and you can help. And I think that's like everything else is sort of like can be taught. You can learn how to, create a run a show document. You can be taught how to call a show if you're on site as a show caller. But the intangibles are often the more important things to learn. And really, I truly believe it's about how you make connections, how you meet new people, and how big your roster of connections is. So when you need somebody, they're there for you and you know who to go to.
Yeah, I think there's something interesting here happening. Like the personal brand piece, I totally believe, and I mean, and you've done a great job on that, right? Where it's kind of, and I see that in tech as well, where people are affording their own thought leadership or promoting their own thought leadership while they're in a role, and there's these things happening, so that when you do move on to another role, you have some uh, uh, what a little bit of branding that stays with you, and that momentum carries you forward into other roles. I
Yeah.
feel like is there a secret, or is there a, and maybe this is just your personality, Evan, or how you're wired, I should say, for events people to do that? Because I think sometimes they're so comfortable behind the scenes, right? Pulling the strings and putting it all together, that they may not be. And I'm seeing a lot more social media promotion of events in a way these days, like from the event managers and from these people who are behind the scenes. But do you have any suggestions for people to kind of get themselves out there? Because I think in a lot of ways it's not in their nature to do so.
Yeah, it's so funny. The more I talk to event people, the more I learn that I feel like I'm a bit of an anomaly. Not that I'm the only one, but like I think there's an anomaly there. I think you're totally right. A lot of event people are maybe more on the introverted side versus the extroverted side. I think a lot of event people, like you said, prefer to be like kind of behind the stage, behind the drape line, at front of house, calling the shows, doing those kind of things. For me, I sort of go the like polar opposite. I'm like, I want to be on stage. I want the lights on me. I want like to be in front of thousands of people. I want to share my message. I want to share my thoughts. I do it on LinkedIn all the time. Like I just posted on yesterday, like a hot take, a post that like has gained like, hundreds of comments and likes and everything. But that's me. Like I've done a very specific and intentional job of being that opposite side of the spectrum. Like I want, and for me, it's all about thought leadership. It's about having people say my name in rooms that I'm not inside of. Right. And I think that's where it kind of comes down to is like, if you're on the introverted side, if you're more comfortable behind the scenes, like you don't have to jump on stage in front of 5,000 people in the spotlight and start doing jumping jacks and dancing around on stage. Like there are definitely people who do that, but you can take small steps, right? You can take the social media steps where it's like, post on LinkedIn something that's interesting to you that you might think other people might be interested in. And you sort of slowly build, you create like sort of a foundation of like building blocks. And then you kind of move the needle one step forward at a time. There are some people that hate social media and they don't want to post anything. And I feel that. I like totally understand how you can come from that side of things. But I like sort of go the other way. So it's like, yeah, I think it's find something that you can start small at and then build slowly. You don't have to go like 0 to 100, day one. I think you can like join these like Slack communities and these different kinds of communities where like you can kind of hang back a little bit and like watch and listen and learn. And eventually maybe somebody will like tag you on something because they think you're an expert in that field or that piece of what they're trying to figure out. And maybe that propels you to like comment back. And then maybe that like leads to a conversation in like your DMs. And then maybe that leads to like you feeling comfortable posting in that sort of mentality in that community. So there's different ways you can do it.
Yeah, and I think I mean there's a few things that I want to unpack from that. Is one, that you are being authentic to yourself, which is a great way to have your personal brand, reflect that authenticity, right? And so some people may not be wired like you, Evan, and they may not want to be on stage, but there is something authentic to them that they can bring through in their, in their personal branding and their social media. But I also do like that cross-pollinating, in terms of different event organizations, just getting out there. And I think, a lot of the people that I know on the event side of things, on the organizing side of things, sometimes almost do a little cocoon thing, right? They just head down on their own events so much. And first of all, their time, is precious and all of that. But they're so insular or while they're doing that, I think it makes it more difficult sometimes when it is time to get a new job or something like that,
Yeah.
What are you seeing, Evan, right now, in the events industry in terms of the job market? Because I keep seeing a lot of people looking for work, on LinkedIn, and I try to repost positions when I see them coming from our clients or wherever it is. What do you see? And is AI playing a role in this? And like, what do you see going on out there?
Yeah. So I'm like sort of an interesting case study on this exact conversation. I'm new in the role here at PCC. This is week 6 for me. Before that, I was at one of Canada's big banks. I was on the sort of production side, not as much for sort of event facing. I was a sort of shared service for the event team, doing some stuff that way. But there came a shift where I was like, okay, it's time to I've done what I wanted to do here. It's time to find something new. And in my mind, I was like, it's going to take me, 6 months to a year to find the next job, the next opportunity. A lot of people out there, I've been in multiple rounds of interviews and they went with, an internal candidate, or they went with somebody else and they ghosted me, or I didn't even get to have a chance to interview even the first round screening call, right? I think it's definitely a challenging market. I think that the people hiring for roles 100% are using AI. If they're not, it's a huge mistake that they should be. And I think on the flip side, as candidates, you should also be using AI to your advantage. And so you should be using AI to craft cover letters, to craft your resume, to take the job post that you want to apply for, put that into your AI, of choice, let's say, and then say, based on this position, craft me a message to write to the hiring manager that I'm going to write to try to get my foot in the door, right? And so for me, this came up through sort of I had a connection with the company. I got an internal referral, and within sort of 4 weeks of starting to slowly look, I was still working a full-time job. So I would say I was 10% active in the job market. Within 4 weeks, I had done 4 rounds of interviews and signed an offer and was waiting to start, basically. And so I think that is, like I said earlier, that's, I think, a total anomaly. I don't think it happens that easily. Was that part of my being out there and being vocal and being, in the industry? Maybe, but maybe it was.
There was that referral in your network, right?
I was going to say, yeah.
It is.
It's huge.
And I mean, that's what people, talk about is, it's those
you need a foot
connections, which are going to get you a foot in the door. Yeah.
And honestly, it's that internal referral anywhere, not just here, anywhere, anyone that you can get to give you that referral, it takes your resume and your application from this black hole of who knows what to actually be seen by a real person. And that makes the difference night and day, right? It's there's no competition to having a foot in the door, whether if you know somebody in leadership or somebody, in any position in a company you want to go to. And so when I was looking for a role before the last role, I sort of did a couple of things. I sort of would apply on LinkedIn. I would then go to the company profile and I would find talent acquisition, recruiters, HR, and I would add them with a message, be hey, I just applied to insert role here. Would love to chat with you about opportunities. Simultaneously, I would try to find event people in that company to be hey, I just saw this role. This is what I've done. Would love to be part of your team. Let me know who you can connect me with to talk to somebody. So it's there's a couple of little tips and tricks that you can take.
And not just event specific either, right? This is kind of across the board.
Across the board.
What is the new kind of I almost wanted to say tech stack because you were referring to AI and crafting and everything, but what is this new job search, job hunt, process look like? Let's switch gears a little bit. You mentioned a hot take that you posted on LinkedIn. We don't have to talk about that one if you don't want to, but Evan, I want to dig into some hot takes that you have on the event side of things, and just, so not maybe so much me asking you questions about things, but like you have opinions to share. Let's roll them out. Let's do it.
I do. Okay, so we'll talk about the post I did yesterday because I think it's a really good one. And honestly, I was expecting to get tons of backlash from, and I say this with all respect and like sincerity, from the people that I targeted with the post. And so the post was all about how basically what it comes down to is if you're at a trade show, you're at a conference, and you have a booth, and your booth is generally it's filled with salespeople. Maybe it's account managers, maybe it's customer support, whoever that is that's staffing the booth, not the events team who's like produced the event, who set it all up, who's making sure everything is good to go for you. But the people who are actually talking to customers and prospects when they walk by, if those people are sitting there on their phones, like scrolling on Instagram, they're bringing their lunch back, they're leaving garbage in the booth, they're treating the booth like it's their living room or their basement office, or they're just not being respectful of the activation, the event that the events team has worked so hard on, those people, A, should not be invited to come to the show on site. B, they should never be allowed to go to any event ever again. And C, they need to understand, and a lot of times there's this sort of missing link between like what the events team has done and the marketing team has done to like set them up for success at the show. I look at it as like your alley-oop moment, right? So it's like as the event team, as the marketing team, we're there to like throw the ball up, and we're like, we've got you. We'll set it up for you. We'll plan that, reception the night before. We'll get all the right people in the room. We'll get you the space. We'll set you up for success. You then, as the sales team, have to come in and slam the alley-oop home, right? Like you have to take what we've given you and turn that into prospects, into leads, into pipeline, whatever the goals are for that team, for that company, for that organization. It can't be one and the other. It can't be one and the other fighting with each other. So I did this whole post, and it was like, I was expecting to get like, because I have a lot of like people in my network who are like, account executives, business development people that work for like, trade show companies and AV companies, all these different companies. And I was expecting them to come at me like, what are you talking about? Like, nobody does that. Like, we're all professional. And like, not one person said that. I didn't have one comment like that. Every comment is like, thank you for saying this out loud. We agree with you. This is amazing. We have to do better at getting the right people on site. Like, it was so like, I was not expecting, I was ready and I was like prepared to like have like the gloves on.
Controversial.
Like,
right?
I was ready. I was ready.
Hot
and everyone's
takes
like,
are supposed to be like, put it out there. Yeah. So
and everyone's like, yes, happen.
Yeah, right. Well, and I mean, I think that's the, mark of a good post, is that you said something out loud that no one else had the courage to say. Now, and to comment on that too. Like, I mean, we do booth staff trainings. We do the how to train your booth staff training for event managers at Exhibitor Live. Like that's one of our sessions. And so, the idea of being able to control who your team is a nice idea, but in most companies, that's not, the event manager doesn't have that control. So it's almost like that message almost needs to land on the VPs of marketing and the VPs of sales and that sort of level to say, hey, empower these event managers to run the trade show booth like they know how, and not overpower them or burden them with some of your own decisions, because that's not your expertise. But that's a battle in a lot of companies, right? Is like, who's got ownership of it and who can make the call, because there's lots of times where the people coming are horrible, right?
100%.
And it's kind of like, and you're basically becoming a babysitter, having to deal with whatever's being thrown at you, and so one of the things we talk about too is just like, can you put together an events A team that you just bring to every event, and they know the deal and they're bought in, they've got the skills, they get the assignment, they're wired to do it, and they want to do it. So and I mean, so amen to that. I'm doing the same thing, Evan, with like, high five and like, thank you for saying that out loud. But there is that kind of like, that wrestling over events. Like internally, we know what we want to do, but are we allowed to do it? Right.
For sure.
There's that side of it. Yeah.
And then it's like I think there's also the fight as well too that happens where it's like, as the events, as marketing, communications, even like those teams are like, listen, like our job ends at the lead, like the lead capture device, our job ends. And now the sales team job starts to take that connection that's come in the lead capture device and actually turn it into revenue for the company. Like it's not my job to turn a prospect into a paid customer. Like that's never going to be in my job title or my job description. Like, can I learn the product? Can I understand what we do enough to go into a booth and talk about it? Like, I can do it like on a surface level, but I'm never going to have the information, the deep rooted information that will turn a random person on the street into a paid customer. That's just not, I'm not wired like that. I'm not wired as a sales guy. I'm not wired as someone who's going to phone call or email thousands of people a day to get them to buy a product. I'm just never going to be that guy. And so I think there's also this struggle that happens where it's like, there needs to be that respect for each other's world and respect the communal world too, right? So it's like those Venn diagrams, like the two circles on the outside, the circle in the middle. And I think a lot of times and I'm going to say this biasly, because I think I have the right to say it with a bias intention. I think the events and the communications and like the marketing side respects the leadership side and the sales side more so, generally speaking, than the other way. I think a lot of times the sales side looks at it as like we're here, we're talking to customers, we're doing what we want to do, leave us alone. Whereas our side, we're giving you, the activation in the booth, whether it's the coffee station, whether it's a good swag, whether it's the reception the night before at a restaurant down the street from the conference center. Like we are doing X, Y, Z for you to be successful. You don't give a shit about what we're doing here. Right. And I think, and again, I'd preface that with like, it's not everybody.
For granted, for sure. Right. Like maybe, they don't give a shit in some cases, some companies, but that idea that it's just kind of like, well, they show up and everything's done. And they kind of don't realize all the work in behind that, not just to organize that, but also the strategy involved and why they're doing that, right? And
absolutely.
And then they can come in and just boot it, if you will, by like one example is at a show recently. If you have a barista making coffee in a booth, it takes like 3 minutes to make every coffee, right? There's a line, and that's why it makes a line, right? But the thing is about that barista is that if there's 3 minutes, I don't want to do the math, but let's say there's about 220 coffees they can make in a day, right? And they're going hard all day long. So that's 220 scans of ideally prospects. But when your salespeople want a couple coffees a day, and you've got 10 salespeople, 20, you're going to cut down on the number of leads that you can generate off of that thing because they're just helping themselves to the coffee in the booth, right? So that's the kind of stuff.
I didn't think you were going to go that direction with that. I thought the direction I thought you were going to go with that was you have 220 possible people. You have 3 minutes of time. You have 3 minutes of uninterrupted time to talk to each person in line. Or even better if it was me and I was doing this. So I just had a conversation with my friend Julia Solaris about this. Yeah. And I was like, listen, if I have a latte booth or I have a coffee station in my booth, and I hate this is another big hot take. If you're a competition booth staff in a competition booth, and you come over to my booth to get a free coffee, I'm bringing a square machine and I'm charging you for that coffee, first of all. But to go back to it quickly, if I'm a salesperson and I know that I have a coffee station in my booth, I'm going to be, and again, like I'm not a salesperson, but this is what I would do. I would be standing right beside that barista while while they're working and they're making the coffee. I'm talking to that person who's at the front of the line with uninterrupted exclusive access to, but these people, right? Not even like salesy, even just like who did you leave at home to come to be on site here? Like, tell me about your life outside of work. Like, do you have a pet? Like, do you have, is your grandmother in the hospital? Like find out about these people. And I always say, like, the booth is not for hard sells. There are definitely shows and there are opportunities that hard selling is like expected. But I think like in the majority of times in the events industry shows, especially like looking at like IMEX, CME, like Go West, like these big event industry shows, that's not for selling. It's for communication. It's for connection, for building your network. It's for learning about people. And then after the show and your post-event, work, that's when you do your sales, right? So, and I have fights with people all the time about that. And I have big opinions on that stuff too. But like, I'm going to be that guy who's like at the station finding out about these people's lives. So then after the show, I'm not just going to be like, hey, you were at the booth on Tuesday at 2 p.m. I want to sell this to you. It's like when they get home, you send them an email. You're like, hey, I know you left your 5-year-old son at home who had a baseball game Monday night that you couldn't be there for because you were here. Did he win? Did you get any pictures from him? Now let's have a conversation. Once we're like warm, now let's have a conversation about what I can do for you and what you can do for me. But having that information that's so easily accessible right in front of you, exclusive access, it's such a miss. And it's such a big like headache that I see all the time that, and that's what I mean. Like that the sales team, like I'm not going to swear again because I think that's bad for this, but like, the sales teams, the sales people, they don't see the big picture. They see like, if I have, I'm here for 3 days for 8 hours a day. I know I can talk to 50 people a day. I can sell this and this. That equals this amount on my commissions check. Like that's what they see. They don't see like the bigger picture of like relationship and community and networking. And it's not always about the commission check. If you do well at the connection and the network and the like being responsible in the booth, those checks and those commission checks should flow like no tomorrow. But they don't get it, and they don't get the big picture.
Yeah, I mean, we have a framework we call the Engagify framework, and it's kind of a 3-part system, and it actually has all these really cool interconnections in it too. But the first piece is the attract phase, right? And and it's giving people a reason to stop. And a lot of the time, that's all we think about in trade shows. And I say, like, and the coffee is the great example, is like, if you pay enough money, you could give out cash to people, and they will stop.
100%.
But are those the right people, and are you going to take advantage of that, right? Like, so so the second phase is what we call the connect phase. And this is taking that interaction from something that is minimal and making it meaningful.
Right.
And that's what you were getting at right there, is that you're connecting with people when they get their coffee, and you're earning the right to pitch, right? Like you're earning, if you just smack them in the face, with a pitch slap them, as they say, right?
Exactly.
It's like, but in some ways, when you're giving away coffee, you almost could do that because it's the tit for tat. It's a trade show, dude, right? Like they get it. But that's giving them a reason to listen, is that connect phase. And then the third phase is the convey, which is giving them a reason to buy. And so lots of times we try to skip to the end, or we just do the first one and then we don't leave them alone. And if we're just happy with the raw scan. So there's a lot of, things. So I do appreciate that hot take, Evan. Before we go too much further, because I do want to keep this in a reasonable amount of time, and I think I'll probably have to have you back, Evan. I think you're like, we have just scratched the surface of my hot takes, right?
Literally.
This is, so what I wanted to talk about quickly was well, not quickly, but virtual, because you talked about the COVID thing. You talked about, and we kind of teased that earlier. So I do want to kind of put a button in that. Is that what are you seeing now? How is that virtual? Like, what did you learn during the COVID years? Because I mean, the learning curve was quite steep. We did a lot of virtual emceeing, virtual videos, different things to support our clients. What did you see happen? What did you learn? And then, what are you doing now virtually? I'm curious.
So COVID actually for me was like, and this is going to sound crazy, but it was really great. It was really awesome from an events perspective. I had been working in virtual events and sort of what we would call now hybrid since about 2017 at the agency I was at. Back then we had a pharma client who basically was like, we had a 30,000 person sales team. We get these new approvals for medication. How do we get that information out to all of our sales team before our competition can? And so they brought us on as an agency, and we basically worked with our production company partners, and we built what you would call now a virtual event platform. And so it was like an SSO sign-in website page that people would watch broadcast that we would do. So we would fly down to their office in New Jersey, and within 12 hours of them getting the FDA approval, the cameras were rolling and we were broadcasting out to 30,000 people. And so having all that information, that knowledge, and that sort of expertise, when COVID happened, I looked at my sort of leadership team at the bank and I was like, listen, everyone else is going to have some similar to kind of what you had, was like, what do we do? How do we do it? Who do we talk to? How do we get this like in-person experience on a computer, because no one can leave their house? Where I came to the team and I was like, listen, I did this since 2017. I know who to talk to. I know who to call. And so literally so COVID happened, it was like March 12th, I think, was like the Friday that we all went home, and everyone was like, oh, it'll be 2 weeks, it'll be a month, and never happened again, right? April 1st, we did our first internal company AGM where I had 9 executives on a webcast. It was like through Microsoft Teams, like events side, when it was like Microsoft Teams events. And I had like a broadcast partner that had come in that was like controlling the entire show. And it was the same company that I used in 2017. Instead of their own platform, they just linked into Teams that the company already had. And so fast forward now, which is crazy to think about that it's 6 years later, I think virtual, a lot of people are saying virtual is dead. No one wants to be on a computer anymore. Everyone wants to be in person. I think there's a lot of value to that, but also we have to consider, and this is again, another hot take that we'll get into very quickly. COVID taught people that they don't have to be on site. They don't have to be in the office. They don't have to travel to events to do their job and to be successful. So how do you marry the wanting to be in person and wanting to be off the computer conversation with people like me, who's had 2 kids, one in COVID, one just after COVID? I don't want to leave my kids 10 times a year anymore. I don't want to travel 15 times a year. I'm very selective on where I'm going and what I'm doing because I don't want to leave my family at home. I want to be there for those moments that I didn't get in COVID, right? And so I think a lot of smart people are using marquee events. So whether it's your user conference, your big event, as an in-person experience, only in person. And then I think, and a friend of mine who recently talked about this on LinkedIn as well, I think a lot of smart people are using virtual as like teasers and lead ups to those big events. So maybe it's like you have in the weeks leading up to that big event, maybe you do like your customer care team or your product team or your AI team. Maybe they host webinars and virtual meetups where they're talking about stuff that is maybe teasing for what's going to be on the main stage presentations at your big event. Or maybe your big event, your agenda is locked and there's nowhere else to add, but there's these teams that have come to you and say, I really want to get the message out. I know there's no room in the agenda. How do we do it? And so I think it's taking those moments coming up to your big event and turning those into, sponsored opportunities, A, B, getting the community together in a comfortable setting where they're not traveling more than they need to, and sharing information. Maybe you throw in like an entertainment piece in one, or maybe you have like a mentalist or a comedian or whatever it is to keep things light and airy.
Yeah.
But I think smart people use virtual in a different way, in a new way that supports the in-person experience, but adds to it in the lead up, or even more importantly, in the follow through from that event. And so let's say you're like on site from Tuesday to Thursday, people fly home, Thursday night, Friday morning. Next week, they're back in the office. The following week, you throw a virtual thing on their calendars that's like, here are the top 10 lessons that we want you to learn, that we want to give to you to take out of our big user conference or our big event. And so not only do you keep the buzz going, but you also keep people connected. And then that leads them to the next event. And so it's using virtual smarter, not in place of.
I really like that idea. It's complementary as opposed to this, like you said, or, right? One or the other, right? And I do like that top 10 thing, because to me, as someone who didn't go, I don't want to spend days on my computer going to a virtual event, right? Like it's like, how can I condense that down and just have, pure takeaways? So
I just thought about that right now, by the way. That's brand new information. Exclusive right here.
Exclusive hot take.
Just thought about that.
Hot off the press.
I just thought about it.
Hey, Evan, thank you so much for being here. How can people reach out to you? Because you are about expanding your network. So I know there's ways people can reach out, probably on LinkedIn and other places.
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best. I'm on social, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the usual places. I always tell people that I love having conversations with smart people about events or any facet of it. So I'm always willing to talk to new people, whether it's, kids in school that are looking to move into careers, experienced people, executive leadership, like whoever I can learn from, I'm down for conversations. I'm down for connections. So find me. I'm pretty easily accessible, I would say.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here once again. I appreciate it. Well, let's do this again.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to do round 2.
Awesome. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in once again. And until next time, you know what to do. Stay engaged. Thank you so much for listening to Engaging Personalities. If you believe this world needs more engagement and you're an industry leader or you have an interesting take on rehumanizing business, go to go.engagify.ai/podcast-guest to apply and come on the show. If you got something out of this interview, do you mind sharing it on your social media? Just grab a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show. Include the hashtag Engaging Personalities. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, engagify.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and stay engaged.